Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And I'm your host, Amreen Nadeem. And today we're going to discuss a very important topic, especially when people want to achieve something, they want to achieve success in their life. The most difficult thing is to let go of something which is holding them back. A lot of time, like world rewards that, the control is speed, constantly doing something. But what if the true clarity actually comes from the fulfillment and like not from the holding on something tighter or trying to pursue something very diligently. Sometimes you just need to be present and you just need to let go of something that is not helping you achieve your success. And that's why our guest today is John Rota, a creative force, seasoned business operation leader, and the author of Let Go, Let Golf. With an impressive track record, leading projects for HBO, Google, Walmart, Samsung, John knows the pressure of high performance, but it was on the golf course, not on the boardrooms, where he discovered deeper and kind of success rooted in mindfulness, intention, and surrender. And today we're going to discuss in this conversation that how golf became a moving meditation for John, helping him reconnect with his values, heal from burnout, and embrace more conscious, purpose driven life. So let's begin our conversation and let's welcome John. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was looking forward to it, and I love your book, by the way. It's amazing that how you actually connect the golf and meditation, and especially the deep philosophy part and the mindfulness. So I gave a very brief introduction. So just tell us about your journey. That how did your personal journey with mental health, spirituality leads you to it? Stillness through sports.
God, that's a good question. I guess a lot of my life, in the beginning of my career, growing up in New Jersey and being in New York for school and starting my career there, I always lived in fast forward, chasing titles or milestones or validation, and I was convinced that being more would make me matter more. And I didn't stop to feel anything or appreciate the wins, the people, or the moments a lot. I was producing stuff for HBO or for independent places and leading teams and managing chaos essentially. And I basically wore pressure like a badge. And what happened was, on paper it looked like success, but then I hit a wall. And I realized I wasn't showing up as myself much. I was performing, and I realized real success is internal. It's owning who you are, showing up with honesty and presence. And what happened with golf is it was a way to bring me back to center. At first it was nostalgia. My grandfather taught me when I was younger, and he taught my dad as well. And we used to all play together. It was like a family bonding experience. But then it became something deeper. It was a space where noise dropped out and I could finally hear myself again. It was a place of solace. It was like church, essentially. It still is. And what struck me the most is how golf mirrors life. This is what ended up coming to me as I got older and I started playing more and I started living more and understanding things, is that the tighter your grip, the worse it gets. When you trust your swing and let go, that's where the good shots come and that's where the beauty shows up. So that's sort of the long and the short of it.
Mhm. Yeah, very interesting, especially like you talk about your grandfather and that how the
Mm,
nostalgia came, and this is very interesting. Sometimes we get the lessons not in the as I actually was giving in the introduction, that not from those like very I would say like in the boardrooms or in the career. These we find those life lessons in the very in the very mundane kind of moments which we
yeah.
often do not even give attention to. So I think that's what mindfulness also teach us, that how to be
Mm.
present in those moments. So I was I was reading your book, and it's very interesting and inspiring that your book Let Go, Let Golf. It's a very beautiful intersection between mindfulness and movement. So what exactly, I mean, inspired you to write it? And the one thing is that I really, when I was just reading the book, I was just thinking that why golf?
Well, why golf is because it correlates with life so well. you know,
Mhm.
just that the parallels go on and on. And, I started writing it. The idea for it came over a decade ago when I was living in Los
Oh,
Angeles and I was working in entertainment, and I played a lot of golf because obviously the weather allows for that. And there was this little 9-hole course called Veterans we used to go to practice. Me and my buddy Scott Mathis, and I would meet there after work. We both worked at HBO, and we'd meet there on Fridays before our Saturday round or during the week and hang out twilight, as the sun was going down in LA. And we would just chip and laugh, and we would invent games to practice with. And it would just be about having fun. And I used to say to him, who would benefit from this is everybody. And because this is a fun way to practice, because paradoxically, when you forget about practicing, you actually get better. We were true grinders. We found the joy in the process, and somehow that joy made us a lot better because we played and we did these little things to take our mind off practicing, and it was just so fun to do. And then you just realize you're just really getting your muscle memory down, and you're enjoying the game more. And at the time, I didn't think that was mindfulness. I didn't define it as such, but that's what it was. It was focused presence. No phones, just repetition, rhythm, flow. And golf became a space where I could actually feel again. I started to understand you have enough time between shots to think about things. You have enough time when you practice to kind of go within yourself and understand what you have to do, understand your strengths and your limitations. And that's what's so interesting about it. Every sport does this, but golf is like it's methodical, but it's also athletic. So you have time between your athleticism. So you have the time. It's not like you're playing basketball or baseball, or baseball's a little slow too, but football where it's like moment to moment. You have to like be there for it. It's a millisecond to millisecond situation. But this was like you have 10 minutes sometimes between shots. You have to wait for other people to hit, and then you hit. And then so you have a lot of time to mess with yourself or get out of your head or get into your head or think your ego gets in the way, and all that stuff can happen in golf a little bit differently than other sports. So years later, after I lost my dad, golf took on even a deeper meaning because it was something we always shared. And writing Let Go, Let Golf became a way to honor that. It was like it was also a way to pass down what I've learned. What I've learned from him, what I learned from my grandfather, what I learned from my friends, what I've learned from the game itself. And it wasn't just about the game; it was about letting go, trusting yourself, and basically finding the joy in the process of improvement.
yeah, that's like you described the entire philosophy of life through this, because
Right.
that's really, really important that we need to stay present in the moment. And the one thing that you mentioned is really interesting, that is also correlates with like what neurosciences tell us, that we need to practice, and we then need to take a time, like a gap, which is also often called gap effect. Like Dr. Andrew Haberman
Yes.
Haberman actually it teaches us that um, when we practice it, yes, that's how like we rewiring our brains to gain mastery. But what happens better is that when we take a gap, when we take rest, and then we see that especially he shares that the neurons that actually is like creating that path during the rest,
Hmm.
they start developing those connection even better. So it's very important that you need to do it, you need to work
Yes.
hard and do the mastery, and to repeat the same thing. Repetition is really good, but then you need also take a step back and then take a bit rest. So in that gap, those neurons develop the connections even better and faster. So that's what really interesting, and that what you actually defined as well. And yeah, and now coming back to the questions, that especially when this book is all about on letting go, right? It's like even in the introduction, I was just saying that sometimes, most of the time, we need, like especially in this world, everything is, people ask us to pursue and keep holding on to something, right? Keep pursuing like your passion, or keep doing something on the same thing. But at the same time, it's very important to let go of something. So what is your, I mean, view on letting go? Why letting go is important?
It's a great question. That's like a crux of the book, really. For me, letting go is about release, not in a passive sense, but in a conscious, active way. It means loosening your grip on things you can't control, whether it's a golf shot, a career outcome, or even a relationship that's run its course. So on the golf course, and it's that moment right before the swing. You've done all your preparation, You've done your pre-shot routine, you visualize, and now you just have to trust, In life, it's the same. You prepare, you show up fully, but then you surrender to the result. And that's all you can do. You have to sort of let things go and let them come to you ultimately. And I used to try to control everything. Everybody has, as you're younger, a little more immature, you think you can control outcomes, but you realize you cannot. And even when you try to and you do, they don't come out as good. They're not as powerful as they do when you let go. And, I used to try to control outcomes and timelines or how people saw me, and everybody goes through this. But the more I learned to let go, the more everything started to flow. It's counterintuitive, but it's authentic. And I think that's the key. Authenticity is like our highest vibration. It's not love, it's authenticity. And I think letting go helps us get to that point quicker and easier and with more fulfillment.
Yes. Yeah, this is very interesting. But sometimes we, I mean, I think when I look at this, like especially letting go now, it is very hard because sometimes we are clinging to all those things because I feel that it gives us a sense of control, as you mentioned, because we know that
Yeah.
this is something, and it also gives a sense of comfort of the because of the thing that we of like the what is called that we know that it is familiarity, right? Because of this familiarity, we no matter what sometimes, and in because it gives us a sense of comfort, it is very hard to let go of all these things which are holding us back. I mean, it gives me another question uh, that why do you think that it is so hard to let go of all those things that is not working for us?
Why do I think it's so hard? I think because of ego. I think we're all dominated
Yeah.
by that. I think it's ego, and I think it's lack of self-awareness. I think it's I think it's something you grow into in time, and I think that it takes maturity and life experience and the people to kind of understand yourself better. So I think that's why, and I think that our first reaction is always to want to control it or
Yeah.
manipulate it in some way. I think that's just what it is, and it takes a lot of maturity and faith in yourself and faith in the universe, let's say, to just let it go and just let the outcome come to you. And I think that that muscle gets stronger when you do it and you realize, wow, the result was amazing, or the result was different than I expected and better. And once that starts happening to you, you start realizing I can let go now more because I see how the results end up working in my favor. So I think that's what it is. I think it's just really an ego thing. And I think we all fight that all the time. Our ego wants to keep things familiar, wants to keep us in the safe zone, accentuates our fear. And I think that's what it is. It's about filtering that out and understanding that I don't think life's supposed to be lived that way. We're supposed to
Yeah.
release a little bit, happy.
Yes, yes, completely agree with you. I mean, especially this ego part. I think the
Yeah.
only thing is that when we're so much attached to our ego, then it just it stops us to release that that maybe what is our holding us back, or what all those maybe the traumas even of our life, which we don't realize. So
Yes.
I have a very interesting question that like maybe can you describe a moment during a game when you truly felt that the sense of stillness, or that moment that you think that it has like it transcends you, or that moment yeah, I would just say the aha moment.
Well, there's a lot of them. I mean, sometimes like being in Monterey and having lunch at the you know 10th hole at the Links at Spanish Bay was a moment. Not even playing because you're
Okay.
looking out at the bay and you're just like, wow, this is amazing, and I'm loving being here, and I'm very fortunate. But one that comes to mind was I'll never forget it. Was I was at Doral in Miami. It was a few years ago, a number of years ago, and it was the number 8 hole, and it was a par 5, and I was playing with rental clubs, so I had no expectations. I was just trying to find a rhythm and have a good time with the people I was with.
Mhm.
And I hit a 5 wood. I flushed a 5 wood, right? I had no idea where it went, and I don't even know the course. It was the first time I played it, and we looked everywhere for the ball, right? And then I drove up to the green and I saw it 10 feet from the pin. And I was like, wow, I can't believe that.
Wow.
I didn't. There was water around the whole hole. I had no idea where I was hitting it, and I made the eagle putt. And I had no clue I even cleared the water. I had no clue where I was hitting it. It just worked out. But the swing, I remember. This is why I can remember it, because I remember the swing. It just felt pure. The ball launched off the club face in such a beautiful way, and it was just that feeling of when it's like when you practice, and it's like that moment of zen that you have when you play golf. And a lot of golfers who would hear this understand what I mean. It was just effortless. And that's the thing, when you stop gripping tightly, when you give yourself space and just trust, sometimes everything lines up more beautifully than you could have planned. And that's what I think we're all after in some way, presence that feels effortless.
Yes, I think this is so beautiful. And like you actually, I would just say that you describe the kind of a the moment of flow, right? The sense that because when
Yeah,
you get into the state of flow, that actually that is the moment when you are achieving to the highest level of your capabilities, and that happens when you start enjoying the process. You don't have to force yourself to, be the best or something. It's in fact. It reminds me of the law. This is the law of, I don't remember the name of the law, but this is it just it says that the harder you try, the worse you get. It's just like when you just
right.
trying to get it hard. So I mean, you're trying to work so hard to achieve something, and it gets really worse. And it's like it's the opposite, that you just have to be in the moment, and you start enjoying it and feel the peace and then you just get into the state of flow. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's it.
I would I would add on to that. That's a lot of my book is about that. It's about how do you enter that state purposefully, right? How do you
Yeah.
intentionally? Because there is a way you can intentionally go there through meditation or breath work or visualization, and that's like, I mean, I'm not a master at it either. I try every day. Every day it's new. So, but the more you do it, the better you do get at it. And I think that's like sort of what my book's about, is how to enter that flow state in an easier way. Not just in playing golf, which it helps if you play golf, but if you don't play golf, you're going to get it. And so
Yeah.
I think that's an important lesson to learn.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love that you know how to actually achieve it, because I think that is the ultimate state where you can achieve the best in your life. That you can achieve the peak performance or anything. Now, which leads me to another question, that you've worked with like all the major brands like HBO, Google, Samsung, and of course the pressure of the environments were so intense at that. I'm sure that. So how do you find that balance, or the understanding of balance and well-being during that high pressure environment?
Well, you gotta enjoy what you're doing first of all. So I felt really fortunate. I worked at HBO for years, and I love what I did there because that's what I wanted to do. When I got out of college, and even before that, I studied television development and communications and journalism, and so to do what you studied is always gratifying. Google and Samsung were clients on the agency side when I moved into advertising. Those experiences taught me how to perform at a high level, but they also showed me, how easy it is to lose yourself in the process. Like you were saying, the pace is constant, the pressure is crazy. There's always more to do, more to like solve, more to prove. The clients are always very, hardcore. But what stood out is the people at these companies as well. They're brilliant, they're sharp, they're motivated, and they're a pleasure to work with. So that's always what makes a company is great because the people that make it up are great, and that intensity is baked in. The reputation of the brand precedes everyone, so you're expected to meet that standard every single day, and that pressure could either shape you or swallow you. And so I used to think success was all about output. Now I think it's more about alignment. Are you living your values? Are you grounded? And golf taught me that. Golf was a really, really big lesson for me in this regard, because you can't fake presence out there. The game exposes your truth, and just like life.
Mhm. That's interesting. Like you mentioned that how the golf actually brings out the
Mm.
best in this ways. And how did you find that through golf?
How did I find
Yes,
how it
this
brought out the
especially
best?
things. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially that is because I feel that golf is quite a solo game, right? It's playing.
Yeah.
It's like you have to work on this, and yet I mean, so how did you find out all this, like the inner work and this through golf?
Well, I mean, it was a joint thing. It wasn't just golf. It was what I read. I'm really into the self help gurus. Like Alan
Mhm.
Watts and Wayne Dyer and Carolyn Mace and even Bruce Lee and people like Neville Goddard and those type of folks. And between reading that stuff and playing the game, the correlation became really obvious to me. Especially when I was writing. When I was writing, I used a lot of those books and a lot of those writings as influence, and it dovetailed so beautifully. It was so interesting, and that's how it came about, because I realized that I could apply what I'm reading and learning about myself and about life and about what these brilliant people are parlaying to us, and I can apply it to the game itself. And then I realize, wow, this is not just about the game, it's about life. Because it's almost like when you hit the golf ball, it's like your soul. You're hitting your soul, you're projecting your soul into the universe, right? And then it lands, and you have to play it where it lies. So you only have your next shot, and you have to go through the gate of regret if you don't like where it landed. And you have to just play it where it lies, and then accept what you accept the outcome, and then just overcome it. So that's where it just became very clear that was like, very well correlated with how life is and what I was reading, what Wayne Dyer was talking about about how you can live with your wishes fulfilled, or you have to kind of play life the way it's given to you, and that's where your power lies.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's amazing that how you actually build this connection with life and golf and everything. I know, like, since a lot of people actually do like study and these things, do read about all these books, but very few people actually think about writing a book. So, what actually gave you the inspiration to convert whatever you like been thinking or reading and then convert it in a book, and like they have the idea to publish the book? So what gave that inspiration?
I always wanted to write a book. Writing was always something I did. And when I worked at HBO and I worked in entertainment, I always developed scripts. So I was always working with writers. I wasn't writing the scripts, but I would be giving notes, and I would be reviewing the material and helping improve it in some way, hopefully, right? And I always wanted to write, and it just, it's interesting because it took like 10 years to get the book done. I put it, it's like anything else. A lot of people listening would understand this. You have an idea and you sit on it for a while because you're just, maybe you're not ready for it yet. And then life meets you at a certain point. You go, okay, now it's the time for this to be born. And that's sort of what happened. And I always had the idea to write one. And I always had this idea because I had the book started in like scraps of notes in Google Docs. That's what's so interesting when you write something like this, and it really starts it, but then everybody else has Google Docs open, and you look at that, and that can be your book. One day you can look at it, and it could be like on the shelf at Barnes and Noble. It's pretty amazing. So that's why. I mean, I always had the idea to do it, and I always had this idea, and then because I was into such self-help stuff and mindfulness and self-improvement, it sort of correlated really, really beautifully. And so that's kind of how it happened. It just, and then I pitched it to an editor, a book publisher, and they really loved it, and they encouraged it, and they mentored me through the process. So that's sort of how it all came about.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I can relate. When you said that, you had to sit on the idea, like you took 10 years, but of course I took the double the time. I took 20 years to write the book. So yeah, it takes time, and you
The
have this
book took
whole.
like a year to write. Well, that's what's interesting when you get doing when you
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it took
of
me 10
course.
I had the idea, but it wasn't fully baked. And then once I pitched it, and once it was accepted, and once I got motivation with it, it was done in a year.
Yeah,
I had a process now, and that was what's cool about it too. Is like the process was so, and I'm sure you can relate to this too. The process was the most gratifying part. Writing
yeah,
it, researching it, because you're in receptive mode. Everything you're looking at is inspiration. I have books all over my house, and I had like everything you look at and everything you watch could feed another idea or another
yeah,
story. And when you read my book, it's 50 short stories, and you could see like there's a different influence on. I talk about Stoicism. I talk about Hamilton, the play, and I talk about many different things that people can be like, oh yeah, I've seen that and I know that. They can almost get where I kind of got the inspiration from, and that's what's fun about the process, because it might take you a
yeah.
little while to marinate on it, but once it starts, the inspiration just flows.
Absolutely, completely. I can relate what you said, because like it's almost like I also take almost a year and a half to write a book, but of course the 20 years was just the, like, when like you get the all the inspiration, you get the idea, like, I had this idea that I will write a book on this, and like then everything was actually, I was just looking at life through the lens that how it can fit into the book, how it can be linked or can be to the idea that I want to write in the book. So it's amazing, the process itself of writing book. It's so gratifying and fulfilling that
It is.
that it's worth it.
It
Definitely.
is. That's why I'm working on my second one now.
Oh, I'm so excited. That's really,
Yeah.
what is it about, the second one?
The second one's about weather and health, how weather affects our
Oh,
health. Yeah, I have a
this
really
is
big
very
article coming
interesting.
out pretty soon about
Oh,
it,
wow.
and it's going to be interesting. I've kind of, it's not settled science, but it's there. There's a lot of scientific, especially with wearable technology and the research that's gone on. I've talked to many meteorologists and neurologists and rheumatologists and
Wow.
psychologists and neurologists, right? So I've talked to a lot of people about it, and I've sort of proved out the science. And it's a really interesting topic. It's a little larger in Japan and Europe than it is now in the U.S., but it's growing. And I think my book is going to really be very interesting for a lot of people because everybody can relate to it. And it affects,
Yeah.
weather affects us in ways that we don't even realize. But a lot of people know, like my knees hurt, or people have chronic conditions always feel something, or people have migraines. So I think it's a
Yeah.
very fascinating topic that affects everybody, and it has nothing to do with golf.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this topic is really, really interesting. I'm already excited to actually read more about it. In fact, I was looking at, I haven't actually listened to the podcast, but I think there was one podcast. There was a one scientist who was actually telling that how the like being in the sun can help or build our immune system. If you don't
Absolutely.
have the availability of sun, maybe you can just spend more time in the water, because all these elements of the nature has direct impact. It influences or it impacts our health, and it is so much directly linked to our health that we don't even realize. And like it's very important, especially like earth, wind, and water, fire, all these elements. We need to be close to these elements of nature, because it is kind of, this is, we are part of nature, and we have to draw all these things. So it creates a balance to stay with the nature. So I'm so much looking
Well,
forward to this book.
that's so. Thank you. Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's right. They're a good band too, even. But the thing about it is that this relates to the book as well, because what I've talked about is go analog when everybody's going digital. Everybody wants to talk about AI and machine learning, this and that, but go outside and look at a tree. Go barefoot in grass, and I think that's what golf helps you do. It helps you. You're in nature for 5 hours. Enjoy it. I have a story called "Stop and Smell the Roses." Take the lavender off the tree and smell it for aromatherapy. Calm yourself down before your tee shot. There's there is the ancients knew what they were doing. Ancients didn't have iPhones. They lived pretty well, and they had a lot of wisdom that I would like to help pass down again, because I think sometimes we forget about it. The technology kind of buries it because we think we
Yeah.
know it all because we have all this information. But the reality is, if we go back to basics, I think it's essential to human living. I think humans were supposed to look at lakes and rivers and oceans and trees and
Yeah.
forests, as opposed to big buildings and inside of cubicles and office buildings and glass. And so there's an importance to that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, I really like this idea, and I think we need to not only connect to the humans, or something, you talk about that, how we can also connect with the inner self, but I think it's very important to connect with the nature. This is very, very important. And as you said, that need to walk on the barefoot on the grass, or uh, and smell roses or something. I mean, it's something, it
Mhm.
actually, I would just say it, how to say that, it it refreshes all our senses, right? It's very, very important. And then all these things link to our mind, and it opens up our different senses, not these, the five senses. Also, we also would be able to actually tap into our more into consciousness, collective consciousness. So it's linked to this.
Yes.
But in order to achieve that, we need to actually detach ourselves from, you're right, that in technology and this, the AI and everything, whatever the world is right now saying, that we need to be more of that. But I think this is very timely. I think your book is very, very timely, and I will be really the first one to actually read it because I'm so excited to hear about it. So
I
definitely.
appreciate that. I have an article coming out in the Washington Post. I don't know
Okay.
when it's going to be out, but I just finished it, and so I've been working on that for a while. And it's the entryway into it, and it's going to be, it's interesting because it's not just like how you can put your feet in grass, and swimming in the ocean is super important, but it's also what are the invisible effects that do affect our lives, like pressure and things such as that. So that's what I find interesting as well. There's things that we don't even know, why we're in a mood some days and why we feel a certain way off. And a lot of times that's air pressure. A lot of times it's things that we don't even realize that are happening to us. And we're all living in the same earth. So everybody's affected by it in some way or another, but we just don't know it. And my goal is to raise awareness to that. So there's another way, it's another level of self-improvement.
And I know, like, maybe we are drifting a little bit from the topic, but I'm so interested in that. But have you also included this the kind of I wouldn't call it astrology, but it's like, that how the movement of the stars and the movement of sun and moon affect our health?
I have
Have you?
not, but we're still in the pre-stages, so I can always look into that and incorporate it.
Yeah.
I was also looking at human residences and seeing how that correlates as well. So we'll see what actually goes in the book, but there's a lot of interesting science behind it too, and I want to base it in science, and then and base it in the humanistic viewpoint of it too, like case study wise, and how it affects people in real life. And I think it's going to be very informative. It's like a 10% happier, like why we sleep type of book. So I think it has a lot of potential to well.
Yes, yes, definitely. I'm sure it will be. So, I just I wanted to ask about this, like, since now we are talking more about like your connection with nature and something. In this book, you talk about the human connection, right? That your superpower, that
Yeah.
how does the connection show up differently when you approach it with the presence and purpose and everything. So,
Well, golf strips you down in a way. It shows you how to respond to pressure, failure, and even success. Right? You learn a lesson through every shot, essentially, and every shot's different. Every experience is different, just like every day you live. There's no one else out there to blame or to lean on. It's a solitary game in many ways, right?
yeah.
It's just you, your swing, and your thoughts, and you have plenty of time to hear them, right? It takes sometimes like I said, it takes 10 minutes sometimes or more between shots, especially if you're playing at a local muni and there's a million people out there, which isn't really awesome, but you have to wait and you have to wait your turn and you have to hang out, and so um, that's when you start noticing the voice in your head more when you have the time. Is it supportive? Is it harsh? Is it even yours? Or is it something you picked up from somebody?
Yeah.
So those are things that go through your head. And then playing golf made me realize how often I was judging myself. And
Mhm.
over time I started shifting that voice, talking to myself the way I would talk to a teammate. Encouraging, honest, patient, positive. And I try to keep that in mind, because you tend to be really harsh with yourself and not as harsh with other people in a way. You're less polite with yourself all the time. And so that change in mindset didn't just improve my game, it changed the way I moved through life. And it's still ongoing, obviously. It's like the game itself. Self-awareness is impossible to master,
Yeah.
but it teaches you who you are.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love your book. I really enjoyed reading it. So definitely, and I would
Thank you.
recommend everyone that who is listening to this show, please get a book, Let Go and Let Golf. I will share the link. I've already shared in the comment, but I forgot it here in the banner. But I will be sharing it again in the comments so people can actually get it. I know we can talk a lot about this, and because it's very interesting, but I'm afraid the time is limited. So before I close the show, what one advice would you like to give to our audience today to practice actor the this to practice letting go, practicing the letting go part?
Well, I think it's about intention. Intention starts with knowing what you're here to do, and curiosity keeps you open enough to evolve while you're doing it. So you're not just executing tasks on a day-to-day basis, you're paying attention to energy, nuance, and people. And the truth is, when you lead from presence and you let go and you trust in yourself and in the universe to deliver, you and your team, if you're a leader, perform better. And I think even when you talk about leadership, it's like when you come from that space, your team feels safer, it feels more seen, it feels more included, it feels more valued. And that
Yeah.
builds a culture where excellence is sustainable. And I think that ultimately we're trying to be excellent in life. And I think that if we come from that purposeful place and a
Mhm.
place of having purpose, but also letting go of the outcome, that's the sweet balance between living a life of fulfillment and directing where your life goes, as opposed to letting it direct you.
Yeah. That's wonderful advice. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing your insights and wisdom here. I'm sure our audience have enjoyed a lot. So, what is the best way to reach out to you? What is the, I mean, I know you're very active on LinkedIn. Any other place?
Yeah, LinkedIn would be
You want to
great.
share?
LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm at John Rota on Instagram or
Oh,
LinkedIn. You
okay.
can just look me up. So I'm happy to talk to anybody there. I'm actually going to be announcing my next book too, so I'm happy to
Oh, wow.
hear about everybody's weather stories.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. And please do keep me posted on this. I would love to read your book.
I will, and
So,
I'm really glad you like this book too. I think that a lot of people have been finding enjoyment out of it, and I think that you don't even have to be a golfer to really get it. But if you are
yeah,
a golfer, I think it's very beneficial, and it's an amateur's book to an amateur. It's not like
yeah.
Tiger Woods talking to you from the heavens. It's like I'm a guy you could be paired with on any weekend, and I play pretty well, but I've practiced a lot, and there's some good knowledge in there for everybody.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So, anyways, thank you so much. And I hope to read your next book very soon. And thanks to the audience who joined us today. And thank you and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks everybody. Thanks for having me.